Anyway, let's move on to the epilogue. Yeah, okay, so in the epilogue, what happens is that there's... Okay. I'll address you. Happy now? Go away. So I never wanted to use this channel to discuss politics or social issues. I always intended it to be a fun place, able to be enjoyed by everyone without the risk of opinions or content that would threaten to divide down those lines. That said, though, I feel I can't talk about B-7 without addressing the controversy it sparked, because the issues surrounding that discourse, in my opinion, also reflect some issues surrounding writing as a craft in today's day and age. So here we go. Apparently, when B-7 came out, some readers saw some parallels between the story's narrative and anti-transgender rhetoric. They cite Billy's journey, the procedures he goes through, the events in his life, the tragic ending. They say that's similar to the transgender experience espoused by critics on the right side of the aisle who would tend to prop up like sensationalized and demonized versions of transgenderism. Reading the story, honestly, I could see where they were coming from. They didn't just pull this out of their asses. There do appear to be some parallels. And with transgender discourse, like front and center in today's day and age, with all extremes espoused by all sides, it makes total sense why someone would read this story and see it in this manner. That said, though, however, that's the extent of credit I can give to those readers. There is a world of difference between a transgender person's experience and whatever the fuck Billy went through in B-7. Billy dealt with a crisis of fundamental identity. His very humanity, his identity as a human being, a Homo sapiens, was the point of contention. He engaged in objectively self-destructive behaviors that clashed negatively with his essence as a human being. And the truth is, if you were to tell a horror story like this, where a person believes that they are something inhuman and goes to great lengths to achieve that affirmation, it would probably play out very similarly. An animal, an alien, a building, for Christ's sake. The unshakable mindset, the surgical procedures, the body horror, the clash between humanity and unattainable standards of physical affirmation. Identity and going to extreme lengths to achieve your true self are concepts that have been explored to their darkest depths well before B-7. So, the way I see it, B-7's only crime was coming out when it did, within the fandom it did. A fandom that has people who mean well, let's make no mistake, but who might be so impassioned that they might just see things that aren't really there. There's something kinda similar going on outside the FNAF fandom right now. Roald Dahl was an author active throughout the 20th century, responsible for classic tales such as James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Fantastic Mr. Fox. He is highly regarded, and his stories are considered indispensable staples for both children and adults. Now, in the current year, his stories are being workshopped and republished by so-called sensitivity readers, whose job it is to scour the text for language that is considered outdated or offensive. While this isn't the same thing as what happened with B-7, the essence of the reactions to both works is fundamentally the same. In these cases, the story is judged not by what it's saying, but rather how it meshes with the zeitgeist, or rather, the spirit of the times. Right now, words like fat, crazy, Even gendered terms like mother and father are seen by some as problematic, which is why Roald Dahl's works that contain those words are currently getting scrubbed. And with B-7, the subject matter, the way the story plays out, and a number of unintentional parallels are seen by some as transphobic, because right now, the temperature from all angles of transgender discourse is at a boiling point. It's important to recognize that social attitudes change over time, that what's seen as offensive now might not have been in the past, nor might it be in the future. If B-7 were written 20 years ago, before transgender rhetoric was at the point it was today, I highly doubt anyone would have seen it as a critical allegory for transgenderism. Heck, I doubt it would have been seen as an allegory for anything beyond pre-existing themes of self-identity and change. But because of the spirit of the modern times, the story was seen as problematic and proof of some hidden bigotry expressed by the authors, which isn't the case, because even if all that I just said was bullshit, this here is a statement written by the story's co-author Andrea Wagner. In a nutshell, she claims that there is no intent to be allegorical, that parallels between transgenderism never even occurred to her, and that the story is just a story. You can read the full statement in the description below. But what about Scott Cawthon? In Miss Wagner's statement, she claims that Scott Cawthon never intended throughout any of the Fazbear Frights or Tales of the Pizzaplex for any of his stories to be some sort of commentary on human identity or attributes. However, you might say, we know Scott Cawthon's politics, and we know that people on his side of the aisle would have sensationalized critical perspectives on transgenderism, so who's to say he didn't use this one story to sneak in some kind of commentary? Well, ignoring Miss Wagner's statements to the contrary, no one really knows. Not you, not myself, nor any of the millions of readers out there with their own takes on B-7. Unless Scott Cawthon himself comes out and explicitly states his intent for the story, none of us will ever objectively know. Which brings me to comments like this. This comment is from a long Twitter thread where a reader lays out anti-trans parallels in the story they saw, also linked in the description, concluding that we, as in you and I, don't know Scott, and that we're letting our idealizations cloud our judgments. Well, that's true. We don't know Scott, and it might very well be possible that our idealizations of him are clouding our judgments. But aren't you doing the exact same thing in reverse? Are you not letting your demonization of the man cloud your judgment? You don't know him either, least of all his intent for the story. And the only proof that you have that Scott intended B-7 to be some sort of allegory for transgenderism is a number of parallels that you saw in the story and the fact that he's conservative. If that's all you have, and especially considering the counter evidence, I'm sorry, that's some pretty weak sauce. And I'll end with this. If you truly want to make a point to be an ally and call out anti-trans rhetoric where you see it, I think there's a few more obvious places you could look, besides just random stories in subpar young adult horror fiction. You keep calling it out and making a fuss over things like that, no one's gonna take you seriously when you call it out for real. I truly hope this is the last time I have to talk about something like this. I do not like talking about politics or social issues. That's not the point of this channel. It's not fun for me. And God forbid, what if all I said causes a stir? So be it. My perspective's out there, and I believe I've been very fair, transparent, and nuanced in conveying it.